They've built the defining infrastructure layer of the AI boom.
There were no names for the category that you were building in, right? What was that engineering problem? What were the gaps?
While you could do something really fun over the weekend, there were still a lot of challenges to put it in production.
I think we've gotten lucky a few times with naming it AI Gateway, and then everybody else started calling it the AI Gateway as well. This was this wow moment with Portkey saying you just flip api.openai.com to api.portkey.ai and you suddenly have full visibility on all your AI traffic. We promise our customers that we will save you from the chaos.
Exactly.
Which means that we have to be continuously in that chaos.
Because it is a gateway which is channeling the traffic. So anybody who wants to hook or wants to perform any action on this traffic, they would want to integrate with us.
I'm not going to be a challenger in the space. I want to be the leader in the space.
Hopefully we can edit some of these things.
Yeah. I think we need to be less formal, guys.
You can do.
Ayush knows what he has to say.
Like, it's gonna be weird if I'm
Read
going
an
to
answer.
read and give the answer.
Welcome to the Day One podcast by Elevation Capital, where we chronicle the journeys of founders that we partner with. Today, I have my colleague Poorvi, my co-conspirator in AI investments at Elevation. And we have the good fortune of having the founders of Portkey, Rohit Agarwal and Ayush Garg, here with us today. Portkey is an incredible story. They've built the defining infrastructure layer of the AI boom. All AI companies in today's world and all large enterprises need to manage the traffic that is flowing through their entire company. And in that traffic, the important part is to have security, governance, controls, and that's what Portkey provides. Portkey started as an AI gateway, but it is so much more today. We are also recording this at a very remarkable time. Portkey just announced that it is going to be acquired by Palo Alto Networks, and it will become part of the Prisma Air's security suite of products by Palo Alto Networks, which is their core runtime security platform. And this is the platform they'll use to govern agents and manage agentic security. Welcome, Rohit and Ayush.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So, starting off, a global leader in AI security looks at a company and says, hey, this has built a product which is core to our needs. Let's start there. What does this moment validate about the problem that we started solving? And how has that manifested in the world?
I think it stems from the single belief that both Portkey and Palo Alto shared at the very beginning, which was, as Portkey, we always wanted to control a percentage of the world's traffic or the world's AI traffic through our systems, because we believe that there's so much more infra advantage that needs to be added to the tokens that are flowing across the internet wires today. And it's super cool that Palo Alto manages so much of the world's internet traffic today through their infrastructure. And I think that's what really got us very interested and saying that, hey, this is a good match where we are trying to map out this AI traffic and provide value on top. It could be a great partnership.
Awesome. And maybe, Ayush, from your perspective as well, given you've seen how technical infrastructure has been moving.
Yeah. I think it's quite exciting. I think a few years back, the conversation used to be, hey, how do I know what's going wrong in my AI? And AI ops was an emerging category. And from that AI ops as one small piece in the whole infra, to now this has become the central platform to run and govern the entire AI businesses and business units inside an organization. I think it very clearly says how this space has grown and how quickly it has matured over the time. It's exciting that we were able to build it and we were able to learn from these enterprises organizations that what's important, what does AI governance actually mean, and through this gateway, which we saw as a simple gateway, but how this layer can eventually become the centralized thing and govern the entire AI across the organization.
Amazing. So let's speak into the person behind each of you. maybe a good time for us to step back and talk about your journey still here, because that's also been very fascinating. So maybe we'll start with you, Rohit, first.
Yeah. So Portkey is actually my second venture. I didn't know much about business building, but I started a company right out of college back in 2011. This was Framebench. We were building a visual collaboration platform. So think of Google Docs, but for images, videos, um, and PDFs. So got to great customer traction. We had over 1,000 companies using the platform at that point in time, but really had zero business sense, zero pricing sense. So we ran the company really well, had a lot of fun in those 3 years, but then realized that we needed to understand business a little bit better. We had started to do well, but then we actually got acquired by Freshworks and became part of that team. So the technology merged into their collaboration product, and I had a fantastic run at Freshworks. Obviously, that was a company that was a complete rocket ship back in 2015. And I think the only advice I had gotten there was just learn everything that there is to learn about company building, organization building at Freshworks. So fun 5 years there, 3 years learning platform engineering at scale, then heading product for Freshdesk, which was just an amazing opportunity that Girish gave me to grow the business across territories in the world. I moved out just before Freshworks was about to go IPO, moved into a startup called Pepper. That's where Ayush and I actually joined forces, and we were building AI for content marketing. And I think just at that moment where ChatGPT was becoming big, we realized that there is a big open void right now in terms of how teams would want to go to production with AI that is bound to come. And maybe we were a little bit early in 2023 to say that, hey, this is how it should be done. But we're a little glad that we were early and we started Portkey in 23.
No, fantastic. And Ayush, would love to hear your story as well.
So I've been with early stage startups for the last decade or so. Portkey would be my first company as a founder, but I've been that founding engineer, first few engineers to build the teams from scratch. Uh, I think one of the journeys where I learned most about scaling, etc., was with a startup called MEA Worldwide and then PubNinja. There, we used to handle traffics which would get like 30, 40 million daily active users. That's where I first learned what scale actually meant. What are the things that, when people say your architecture should be scalable, what that actually means from a technical point of view. After that, yeah, joined Pepper, where I met Rohit, and we both started building AI. Where we both started building content marketing using AI, and I think it was a good run for 2 years. And after that, started Portkey.
There were no names for the category that you were building in, right? What was that engineering problem? What were the gaps that you were seeing in the ecosystem and the way you were thinking about AI? Because all these names that, seem very obvious in hindsight, like these were just problems that you were seeing without any names of the category. So what was it?
I think names is a fun part. When we started, we called it FM Ops. Like it was like, okay, that made sense, a foundation model ops. Then I think Twitter decided we should call it LM Ops. And then I think after 6 months to 9 months, okay, this is LLM Ops. AI gateway was a term which didn't make any sense. What's the difference between API gateway? Is the same thing? And very politely, we were asked like, "Do you know what you're talking about?" When we were trying to give the demo. But you're right. I think we didn't know what to name it, or we were still figuring that out. What was clear was from our experiences, and we were talking to our friends, looking at those cool AI demos, that while it is magical, or it felt magical at least that time, now it's more of a granted thing that AI is going to work for you. But while you could do something really fun over the weekend, there was still a lot of challenges to put it in production. Starting from how you're gonna even debug if something goes wrong. There was no right way to do it. I have had conversations with my friends who said, hey, if I'm going to put everything on Datadog, I'll go bankrupt. I can't put such large strings to Datadog and then index them and do observability there. So observability was one of the key problem areas that we were seeing building with AI. The other thing was the models in themselves. Like when a new model came, it was very different than the previous one. Like chat completions was something still very new. It worked very differently than the completions models. What that meant was you had to rewrite all of your prompts. And how do you rewrite them and still be confident that my application will continue to work the same way with the same performance? There's no good way to test if you have 100 prompts. You're expected to change all of them. Like, there's just no workflows that are defined. So that was another problem, and through which we were figuring out, okay, can we change the model seamlessly? What does it change to flip models, do A/B tests between these either prompts or models? That is a problem statement that we initially started with.
Very interesting. And what's the kick behind the name Portkey? How did we come up with that?
Yeah, who's the one into Harry Potter here?
I think both of us are. We were trying to find out what are good names which are memorable and easy enough for people to understand. So this concept of teleportation and that your request is going to go from one space to the other really quickly, we're always thinking about, okay, teleportation, porting, etc. And then obviously there's a very strong Harry Potter reference to say, okay, portkey is another word that does it. So I think I think just again chat GPTing random names to say what makes sense, and this just sort of stuck with us. Found that the .ai domain was available, and like, okay, this is what it is. We're done.
What were other mythological universes that you guys explored?
I think we were. I don't. We were just randomly asking ChatGPT what are other words for
For
this?
this.
How should we think about it?
Interestingly enough, you used AI to come up with the name.
I think we were both sitting on our laptops. One with, okay, tell me what are the names that are exciting, and then the other person was checking if this domain is available.
Fantastic. So you talked about using ChatGPT at the time. So let's rewind back to November 2022 and this thing called ChatGPT.com launches. The whole world changes. You guys had been building AI models for a couple of years. Till then, you knew some of these problems you talked about. So I'm curious about what clicked at that time. What went from, hey, I've seen this problem, no, the rest of the world will see this. Walk us through that journey.
I can take a stab, and you should too. Hindsight's 2020, but I think at that point in time, it was a culmination of platform engineering, what we had done with AI and customer support, AI and content marketing, etc. And all of this coming to a point where we're now seeing that ChatGPT at that point itself was so powerful when we were looking at it that its application is going to be way beyond just customer support and marketing. It's no longer language specific. It's going to do a lot more. And the one, I think, insight that just stayed with both of us at that point was that this is going to be that pivotal shift in computing that happened when cloud computing came into effect. You're not renting servers, you're trusting AWS to do this. But AWS, if you think about it, launched in 2008. But mass adoption of S3, EC2, etc. started around 2012, 2013, where enterprises started to say, now we can start moving our workloads to clouds. And we are big fans of companies like, all of these DevOps companies, like Cloudflare, HashiCorp, everybody. We were always looking up to them, geeking out about what was their strategy and how were they thinking about it. And the insight was that DevOps and these foundational platforms allowed enterprises to move to the cloud and move their production workloads to the cloud. And I think that was the vision with which we started, that if AI has to be productionized, if AI has to go to enterprises, people have to adopt this. We've already seen what a mess it is to go to production with it. It's going to take years for everybody to do this unless you have a foundational platform that exists. Which is where I think we wrote a note to ourselves saying, hey, these things need to happen for us to then be able to say, let's build this platform. We were thinking it'll happen in 6 months, so we have time. And I was about to take a break from Pepper and just chill out. It's just that GPT-4, I think, launched in March, and everything's accelerated, and we just got to do it now.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I think we keep thinking about it, obviously, as investors as well, on this timing on how much time something is going to take to change. How has that been for you as a founder? Because literally every day something is changing.
chaotic, I feel, right? It is,
Overwhelming.
yeah, insane. Because we promise our customers that we will save you from the chaos.
Exactly.
Which means that we have to be continuously in that chaos, which means waking up every day and checking on Twitter saying what new thing has launched, what have we missed out. It's been insane just figuring out which way the world is moving. I think we've gotten lucky a few times with naming it AI gateway, and then everybody else started calling it the AI gateway as well. Shifting into control plane, and now everybody's moving to the control plane dynamic. So I think having been early, we're able to understand what's happening with our customers a little bit better. On the AI side, I think it's still very, very chaotic.
Yeah, I want to double tap on this one. See, because it's not like obviously we've gotten lucky, but we've gotten lucky because of a lot of design choices we have made, right? And in 2023, and it's surreal that it's just been 3 years, honestly, not even full 3 years. It's surreal that way. But we started with observability. And at that point in time, I used to think that, hey, nothing is in production. Who's going to use observability? Obviously, we started shifting left. We started thinking about AI gateway. We brought in FinOps, governance, and so many things as a platform. How did we keep coming up with those ideas? That
I think the fundamental thought that we had, yes, we started with observability, that the thought was any LLM is just another backend system. Like how our applications are, let's say, interacting with Stripe or any other user management identity systems. This is just another backend, which is far more capable, which is not probably you're using and building and maintaining yourself. There are going to be open source options, there are going to be proprietary options that you just connect and build application workflows for your use cases. The only, and which is the largest difference between these backends and this new one, is that's very deterministic and this is probabilistic. The infra layer has matured to cater to these existing deterministic systems for the last 2 decades. It is still very new, or still going to happen at least in 3 years back. There was no systems to take care of LLM as a backend, which means observability, which means caching, which means access control, which means routing, load balancing, A/B testing. All of those things are yet to be built. And that was a thought that we had, that all of these layers will be required, and it would definitely like move to a central layer somehow, someday. Right now, it's baked into every application because these applications are like one or two and they're not massive within an org. But observability was one of the first things we felt is most important. But there was some hint or idea that we had, we probably need to build all of these other layers. And I think architecturally we built it this way, that as these other layers mature, we are able to build other things quickly into the gateway system.
I mean, the idea was always to be a traffic proxy. And traffic proxy is just an unsexy word to say, so we were like, no. And plus, if we went out to customers saying we want to proxy all of your traffic through my servers, they're going to be, why? So I think our first sort of almost product insight was, let's sell observability first, which is on minute one, without you changing anything, can I show you everything that's happening in your application? Because 2023 was everybody like, oh, AI is a black box, it hallucinates, we have no idea about what's happening. And then this was this wow moment with Portkey saying you just flip api.openai.com to api.portkey.ai and you suddenly have full visibility on all your AI traffic. And that's what was killer to people. This was like a use case we were almost like Trojan horsing, saying this is what you get. But what we got in return was all of your traffic is now moving through our systems, which is what we wanted in the first place. Saying once we have that traffic, we can start to add value on top of it. And we knew load balancing and fallbacks, etc., like absolutely low-hanging fruits, which we then started to build out.
And I think you earlier talked about the fact that we went after production traffic, and this was still very early. No, nothing was really in production at the time. People were writing a lot of test code, so a lot of things for actually building and testing were what was popular back then. Actually very curious what drove that conviction, hey, we need to go after that production market. That's where value is going to be created. You were very prescient in thinking that way. Curious to hear more there.
And we'd seen engineering tools over the years, right? And the Banya mindset in us was that dev tools, nobody pays for it. Production people will overpay for it. So we knew that there's a trade-off, that it'll take us longer for people to get to production. We have to stay put till then. I mean, the number of questions we were getting from VCs, and including Poorvi, was like, LangChain's doing so well, and this is the space, and
Thanks
this is
for
what
calling
it is.
it out.
No, and I think we were also in two minds saying that are we just taking a stupid bet here that maybe, and I think the prevailing fear was that if the developer tools move into production, then we're going to be left behind because we don't have an in into the system. But fortunately, I think the engineering tools story played out here as well, where people needed production level tools. And when that flip happened, Portkey was an option.
Yeah, another interesting one. Like, I think what I love about Portkey is that, it's so enterprise and, there's a certain kind of quality that you need to have when you serve production traffic for these Fortune 500 customers. And I'm sure that there are certain design constraints that you're operating with, both of you, when you're designing and taking those architectural decisions. So, are there any metrics, anything that you think about every single time while you're making any of those architectural decisions, any kind of design decisions, that this is what I really care about in my platform, otherwise nothing will move?
I wouldn't say it's very special for us, but any dev tool which is operating in the production critical path, the two most important things are latency and uptime. And those are the two metrics which have been extremely important for us. If we want to become a hop in the production traffic, we can't add any latency, otherwise it doesn't make sense. Same way, like, it has to always work. So there has to be that quality, or there has to be that, like, the product should give confidence to the users that if I put something, it's always going to work. So those are the two things that were very important for us, and two metrics that we like always tracking.
One thing which was very clear, even as you were building this, and I remember a lot of the early conversations, you knew that there is value which is accruing because we are part of this production traffic, but a lot more value will accrue as we move into more security and governance kind of use cases.
Yeah.
And it is something which is not very obvious. So maybe walk us through how you learned it, who were the customers who drove that thinking, and how we were successful in landing those customers.
Yeah. We, I think, have been building product very, very closely with customers. So we were always like, so the idea wasn't that we'll build whatever the customer asks for, but we have to keep understanding what the customer wants, because nobody knows in this AI space on what to build. There is nobody to follow. There are competition, but I don't think anybody is ahead of us. So we're just doing it ourselves. So the only way we could get inputs was from talking to customers, and definitely we had cracked really good logos very early on, which were strong engineering teams that could give us great feedback as well. I think through that process is where we've continued to learn and continue to implement on how we want to go about it. But yeah, anything else that comes to mind?
No, I'm smiling because a lot of times I've gone to the calls and learning from you. Been to the calls, and if somebody has asked something, we said, yes, we have it, let us enable it for you. Then we go back and build it and then ship it. But yeah, I agree, like, a lot of things that we've built is from the feedback we've got from our customers. And I mean, they are the ones who's actually building the AI applications. While we have AI in their name, we don't really build AI systems. We are operating at the infra layer. So the insights on what are the challenges when you scale an AI application, when you want to give access to everybody in the company, those insights were very valuable, and how to solve them along with them, I think, has been super
And we
critical.
also did one more analysis on an Excel sheet, which is the cost of an API request. So, and what is the value add that you do on every API request? So we actually did the math on, okay, load balancing, what is the price somebody is willing to pay for load balancing, fallbacks, etc. And if you just did the math on that, security and governance came out to be vastly outsized in terms of the ROI that you get if you provide those features. So that's when we said, okay, the value of traffic is great, but then the value add on top is where we will start to make money. Otherwise, just being that traffic layer is not commercial enough for people to find real ROI in the long term. Short term, yes, everybody wants it, they'll pay some money for it, but long term, you have to start adding value to every API request. And each API request is like probably a fraction of a cent, but then what is our take on top of it so that we can provide that commercial value back?
And very good segue, actually. You pointed out we learned a lot from our customers, but you learn different things from customers of different shapes and sizes. And I think Portkey was incredible in ability to attract some of the best customers in the world to use it. So curious about that early part of the journey and how we built that GTM muscle and ability to attract such good names, and you can talk about some of them as well.
Yeah. I think one thing that's helped from the very beginning is that both of us are very engineer first. We come from that engineering mindset, so we can have these deeper conversations with customers. But I still remember, I think the first few customers would have been all me begging my friends or me just saying, you have to use it, just put it somewhere in production. And I mean, grateful to those first 50 companies that tried out our product, put it in production, gave us great feedback, told us off when we weren't performing really well. So I think a lot of these companies, and I think most of them still continue to be with us through all of this journey. So they still run all of their production traffic through us. So, Postman, obviously, great brand. And when you have Postman coming on early and using the product, that gives others the confidence. So I think those were the brands that really helped move the needle for us. Post that, I think it was us just being present everywhere. So, I mean, we were in WhatsApp communities, we were on Reddit, we were writing a lot of content. We had an open source repository which we were building developer love with. And then I think the minute we started receiving some enterprise interest, we were just like, hey, this is something we just have to do really well with them. And the first 3 enterprise customers, I think first 4 enterprise customers, the first deal we lost, I think both of us were depressed for a couple of weeks. This is just like, and we had worked really hard to get them live. And this would have been like one of the world's largest companies deploying Portkey at scale. But then we closed the next 3 in very quick succession because of the work that we had done for the first one itself. And from then on, I think it was just that we'll continue to innovate on the gateway side, but we'll continue to build these enterprise grade features. I think, again, some of the decisions we took early on paid off, where infra was meant to be scalable. We built the hybrid infrastructure, which people then caught on to later. We were like, hey, this is how it should run. We decided that the way we store our JSON structures have to be different. That really helped us at scale. So I think all of these decisions, SOC 2, getting it done, I think we did our SOC 2 in month 3 of the company.
We got SOC 2 in month 3. We started at month 1.
Yeah. So like when we're at 0, that's the easiest way to get SOC 2. And we'll continue to then build on top of it. So we were SOC 2 Type 2, ISO, all of those accreditations when we were doing our first sale. And that obviously helped.
The other thing that we would both do is wear Portkey t-shirts and attend any tech event happening in SF.
Yes.
And just go talk to people. What are you doing with AI? And I think some conversation would start. Once an enterprise shows an interest, I think we, and obviously with the incredible team, we would just go after and make sure we work as their team, trying to solve their problems, build it, and get them to start using it. So I think our POCs for initial enterprises would have been much longer, because there was a lot of things that we were learning, we were building along with them. But once they were in production, the product was mature enough to cater to next 5.
At that point, we were really proud of what we'd built. And we're like, I think at that time also we knew that this piece of technology is not something that is going to be the only thing from a commercial perspective. But this is such a cool piece of technology that if everybody else is going to use other products which are just not as good, we'd rather just open source it for people to use this engine within their own cars. So I think that was the whole perspective. Like, we not open source the product or the company, but this engine needs to be open source because people need to really learn about, this is how we are imagining it. Either we'll be wrong about it and people will tell us what, we've done something stupid. But then I think the minute we open sourced it, a lot of the enterprise customers came to us and said, oh, we've read your code. Your architecture is really good. And we like how you're managing this traffic flow, which makes it more reliable, which makes it fast, etc. So that was a bet that paid off. But the goal was always that the core of the gateway will be open source, but it's stateless. The control plane will always stay with Portkey. If you want to build it all yourself, feel free. And there are lots of interesting engineering teams that have actually built their setups on top of Portkey.
One of the things, again, just sticking to this whole concept of go-to-market and attracting customers. I mean, I remember even from the early days, actually, we had an incredible muscle in terms of building partnerships and, all the guardrail providers were partners, a lot of distribution partnerships. I mean, that's where a conversation with Palo Alto Networks also started. So curious on how you approached it, because I'm sure a lot of people would love to learn from you.
Again, being open source helped a lot here. It's much easier for anyone to integrate or collaborate on an open source project. If it's just an integration with another guardrail provider, or it's an integration with, let's say, another observability tool or any other orchestration tool, it's much easier for two open source projects and engineers to collaborate and build it. Uh, More so, it becomes much easier for anybody in the world to try it out. Like, they don't have to reach out, sign up, and then they can try it out. So that just made opening up the conversations for integrations much easier. Uh, the other things were, because it is a gateway which is channeling the traffic. So anybody who wants to a hook or wants to perform any action on this traffic, they would want to integrate with us. And I mean, any other AI gateway, because nobody wants multiple hops in their system. They wouldn't want requests to first go to the gateway, then another hop to guardrail, then another hop to observability, and then reach. They would rather have these hooks. And our architecture was designed in a way we call these before request hooks, after request hooks. So any integration could be done, and we could just send the data. They could perform their actions, return the response, and everything happens in the same layer. So the gateway in itself, because it's channeling the traffic, it becomes the like obvious places to build and integrations on top.
And it comes down to us being greedy about traffic. We have to have all of these integrations on our platform. We have to have all of the traffic, which means we very early on open sourced our plugins interface as well. That hey, everybody just, I mean, we already have this much traffic. Come build on us, and we'll continue to scale that way.
Actually, just double tapping on that, I know we're talking about all the good things that have played out. I'm sure there will be a lot of things that you would have thought that, hey, this is like the coolest idea I've thought. This is what will 100% work out, and it fell flat. Anything that comes to mind?
For sure, lots of things. Which one is your top?
Fine tuning, like we put a lot of bet on that. Fine tuning is something that would be incredibly efficient if you're using a gateway, because all of your data is in one place. It's structured data. You don't, and we had this feature of feedback, so you also know which are the good requests, which are the bad requests. So now you can, have the data sets ready to fine tune. But when the fine tune in itself didn't become extremely popular, and hence all of that, like, which we felt was, this is really cool. Like, people would want their traffic to be, this is where you want all of your data to be, because you can fine tune well. We built a lot of things around it, but then
I think even for us, the guardrails launch that we did early in 2024 was, we did it in a very big way, saying security is going to be key. You need guardrails and you need all of this. And there were guardrails companies getting funded left, right,
Yes.
center. But I think even after 2 months of very strong effort on customers and our base, we hardly saw adoption of guardrails back in 24. Now, obviously, I think now we see a lot more adoption. But back then, we were just perplexed by, this just makes sense. You would want to do your AI firewalls and AI security on the gateway. But most people didn't seem to be buying that story back then. I think we learned that you have to be past a production hump to be able to get to this place of firewalls and security and guardrails and all of these things, which now everybody is worried about. But back then, we were just, I mean, we had spent a lot of time building out that setup with very, very low.
also to do with how many teams are in production. Like, enterprises were not in production, so CISOs were not troubling them a lot. But as soon as CISO comes in the picture, is they want these policies first, and that's when guardrails become important.
On the GTM side, a lot of the customers were obviously international, especially in the US. What worked on how to handle that? What didn't work? Would love to hear about that as well.
I think what we didn't enjoy was all of these long trips to the US and back, continuous flights, and you put it in your tweet as well, right? I mean, that's the hard part, which is you're continuously going back and forth. Half the time you don't know what time zone am I operating in. So I think that's obviously the hard part. But that travel really helped us shape like our vision of what we wanted to build, being a little bit closer to the community. I wouldn't even say that we were traveling to the US and meeting customers regularly. We did have a few customer meetings, but then we spent a lot more time in the community, just talking to people, what's happening in San Francisco. I mean, such a vibrant scene of you're going to these meetups every day, you're talking to people, just getting a sense of what's happening. That was very, very critical for us to understand what was really going on. So when people said AI agents are going to production, you could actually see in the Bay Area what was going to production and then what should we build along with it. So yeah, I think
a lot of founders go through this journey building a global company. What was that for Portkey like?
I think for me it was just about, like, it is a lot of hard work. It is just continuously being up late at night, um, missing mornings with the family at times. You're constantly traveling back and forth, and ultimately I think between us it just came down to like just showing up regularly, which is day after day. Are you just able to do this day after day after day after day? And there has to be something that's constantly motivating you. I think for us that motivation was that we got our early customers, we got that traffic, we could see that number growing day after day. We could see newer customers adopting, all of them going live. So that was that constant motivation that kept us going to say, okay, the next step and the next step and the next step. But otherwise, yeah, if I look back at it, I'm like, how did I even go through this? This doesn't make any sense for me to do. But I think if you're taking it one day at a time, you're just like, okay, it's like 4 customer meetings after dinner. We'll do this and then on to the next thing. Yes.
For me, I think being the founder first time, so there were a lot of learnings. I had never spoken to a customer before, like, and from then learning how to sell to an enterprise, uh, understanding what they want, and how do you frame your answers in a way that you're not saying no, but you're also not saying yes, and trying to find out a solution which solves your problem. Right. And like, I've already read these sentences, you don't sell a product, you sell a solution. I think I learned through this journey what that actually meant. As a founder, there are a lot of decisions you're making every day. Some of them you don't want to make. Some of them you were like, I wish I didn't. You don't know how to make. But it's like what Rohit said. It's about showing up every day, figuring out. And yeah, it's fine if 1 or 2 out of 10 decisions that you make are not the best or they are wrong. But it's fine as long as 8 are correct, and you still have the energy, plus you have the right team who's giving you confidence. It's fine, we'll figure it out together. That was the most fun part.
I think Ayush also enjoyed sales conversations because the engineering teams wanted to hear from the CTO. Yeah. So I could say the same thing, but it carried zero weight. Like, no, let Ayush talk here. I think so a lot of times, there are always opportunities to cut corners and be like, it's still okay to ship. I think because we probably love the problem statement so much, we were like, this has to be really, really good before we ship it. And the driver was, we're not going to be a challenger in the space. I want to be the leader in the space. And I think that drives that thing of, and if you see a lot of the companies based in the Bay Area, based in the US, have that mindset from the very beginning that I'm not going to follow, I want to lead, which means that I have to ship the absolute most polished product that has to go out there. And I think in our minds, we've always had this list of, these 20 things that are still wrong. We still have to fix it. There's constant Slack channels that are pinging where customers are like, hey, this button still is, it's not right, etc. But I think as long as you have well-meaning customers and they genuinely want you to improve, and we genuinely want to improve, I think that just helps build that better product. But that mindset shift is needed. Like, do you want to be one of the players in a large space, which I think is also a great way to build a business? We were like, there is no market, there is no business. So we will invent the category, name it, and then we'll be a large player in it.
I think the other thing when it comes to mindset is, if I think of using a product, any dev tool, which is going to handle all of my production traffic, I would probably never do it. And if I am going on calls and convincing you should use this, then it has to work. Like, it has to be the best quality. So just thinking from that mindset, will I ever use something like which is taking care of my product, like all of my application, and if this goes wrong, I don't have a way to fix it, right? And that was a very scary thing for me. And I'm just handling like this Portkey gateway.
It's a big responsibility.
That can't afford to make a mistake. Like, while yes, we have to be fast, we have to keep the momentum, but that thing was always scary. If we make a mistake, then yeah, I think it's done.
For all the Rohits and Ayushas from 2023 who are building right now, what would be the advice you gave them? I think the one you said about being category leaders and think very quality first. But anything else that comes to mind?
I don't know if you've done enough to start advising people, honestly. I think, but our experience has been this only, that if you can really go deep into a problem statement and you can really like almost be in love with that space, then the solutions come on their own. Customers see that belief with you. And a lot of times, right, they're not trusting the product as much, they're trusting like Ayush and Rohit. They want to see that, okay, these guys will help me when I'm down and they want to help me with the solution through. And that's where the first customers will actually take a bet. Which is where if friends are giving me an opportunity, it's not because that they're like, okay, do whatever, because it's still valuable production traffic. But it's also about that, hey, I am here, I will make sure things work out. I think that's a big part of the early journey of everybody.
The another thing, and it's not an advice, it's everybody knows, it's the team. The first few people you're onboarding, like, they have to be better than you. They have to be more bought into the idea that you are trying to do. And if you have to think before talking to them, then I think it's probably not the right team. Like, you could just be as open, as transparent with that first few engineers, first few team members. I think that is critical. And that just changes the equation of what you're trying to build, how you're trying to build. That's most important.
We stayed tiny for a very long time, right? I mean, we were
Still
10,
tiny
11
as a
people.
team, like
Yeah.
not a big team.
Not a big team.
I think a lot of founders have this, in India, we grow the team very, very quickly. You guys actually held it very, very tight. Maybe talk us through how you thought about the team as well on that front.
We didn't want to be people managers, no?
So it came
Like
from the
we-
pain
It was
point.
one of the things that we were discussing, how we want to build a company. We will never build a large
You
team.
were AI native before AI native was cool.
We will never build a large team. We will keep it lean. We will always, like, one of the things is also we will do in office, because if it's just 4, 5, 6 people, hybrid isn't fun. Like, we want to have that fun building alongside people sitting next to us and not all over a Zoom call. So those are the few things I think we decided. We didn't know if it's the right decision or wrong decision, but we were confident that this is how we want to do it.
And yeah, both of you have been part of the ecosystem, like the startup ecosystem. You've obviously been a founder before. You've been in the startup ecosystem for a decade. How do you feel how the last few years have changed?
So I think that mindset shift is very, very clear. So I think people started with software services, then SaaS became a really big thing. I think India definitely now knows how to build a great product.
I agree with
There are enough product builders who know how to build. And I think everybody is now trying to figure out how to build the best go-to-market motion. Every meetup that we have done, we can do technology talking, but everybody comes in and how you selling it? Tell us how to sell, how to market, how to build. And I'm guessing that's a muscle everybody's building in India really, really fast. I can imagine that in the next 5 years, we'll say, oh, the best builders were already here. You've seen large infra setups happen here. Now we also have the best marketing teams and sales teams that understand how to sell the product from here.
I remember before the first time I had met both of you, and this is maybe a few weeks after I had actually joined Elevation. While driving to the Portkey office, I was like, why is this even needed? I don't understand why this category needs to exist. And then I walked out of the meeting. I think everybody's going to need this. So we need to spend time on understanding that, very clearly this space as well. Uh, so just thinking about that, conversation itself, I think two things stood out very clearly, right? One was the fact that the category was interesting. I think a lot of people just got confused between API gateway and AI gateway. Most people couldn't figure out what the difference between these two was. I think once that thing was very clear, the value it provides and how this category is going to grow was, extremely very, very interesting. I mean, I talked to a lot of friends who are building AI infrastructure in the Bay Area. I remember I had connected you with a few of them as well. And everybody's like, I'm going to need something like this, or we are actually thinking about how to do something like this. So the fact that this category was going to be very critical was very clear. The second thing that obviously stood out miles and miles every time was how far ahead you folks had thought and how you could see around corners. I think you talked about the fact that, hey, we had all this gateway, but we wanted to open source and disrupt ourselves. The value is going to be created by doing more security and governance down the line. Latency and reliability is extremely important. I think as we look back at conversation from that time, I think it was very clear you folks were thinking 2 steps ahead on what customers are going to need and be ready for it when they are ready versus wing it. And maybe you did in a few cases, but clearly you were far ahead. So I think super exciting category, founders that we've obviously been a fan of for a very long time, but who can think 2 steps ahead, and a market leader in the making, right? A category leader, not a fast follower. I think all those 3 things were like, it was a no-brainer. Like,
We'll take all of the compliments. No, thank you for that. Yes.
no, thank you so much for coming, Rohit and Ayush. Best wishes to Portkey, and hopefully it goes to greater and greater heights within, a much larger universe now. And also thanks to Poorvi for co-hosting with me.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Krishna, Poorvi. This was fun.
Thank you guys.